Hello everybody, welcome back to another building video. Today I'm going to be showing you a time-lapse and cinematic of this summer build that I did. This is a summer fairy under a wisteria tree. I hope you enjoy the time-lapse. Let's get started. So to start off, I unfortunately lost the replay mod footage of me building this tree. It got corrupted and I'm not really sure how, but we're gonna start off here and you guys really didn't miss much. I'll link a tutorial on how I get trees to this point so that you guys can do it for yourselves if you want to. Anyways, let's get started on our tree's roots. Once we have a tree like this built, we need to blend it into the ground better to make it look more realistic. For the roots on this tree, I'm going to be building them almost like they're going straight down into the earth. I don't want to do any big fantasy-like roots for this particular terrain because I just don't want to draw attention to this part of the build. I think these roots turned out perfectly fine, and with some smoothing they look even better. Now let's pick out some colors for our tree trunk. For the texturing here, instead of going with a solid color, I go for darker colors in the darker areas like the base of the tree and underneath of the branches. And then for the highlights, I go for some lighter colors like concrete powder and jungle planks. This helps highlight areas and it gives a really nice texture to this tree. Once that's done, we can begin on the leaves. First I'm going to use a sort of a tester leaf. So I'm making a random gold shape, replacing some air into that, and then I'm going to pick out a color palette. For my color palette, I'm sticking with purples and greens. This tree is inspired by a wisteria tree, so the purples need to blend down. I use the plugin Go Paint to get these gradient balls super easily onto the leaves. This plugin makes it so easy to do. It was just amazing to see it work. Once I have 4 leaves I'm happy with, I put them in a schematic folder and then use a scatter brush to start pasting them onto the tree branches. Focusing them mainly on the end of the branches where I did the thinner ones, and then building them out from there to get the shape that I want. I recommend going slowly with this and really taking your time to get the right shape. Once I'm happy with mine, I can begin on the center of my build, which is the swing that the fairy is going to be on. I want to get these ropes the correct distance apart so that everything is correct proportionally before I get started on the bigger details. Once that's in place, I fix up my ropes a little bit, add a few details, and then put my fairy in place. I start with her torso, doing a ribcage-like build, and then connecting the dots on that to get a torso shape. I'm doing this so that I can make sure that I'm getting my proportions correct. And although it is challenging to do it this way, I think it is helpful when building on this scale, and I quite like the technique. Now I'm going to be using the line command to work on her legs and arms. This command helps me out quite a lot because it makes sure that I'm getting straight lines. If you're doing human organics completely by hand, I recommend making sure before you start on anything, get your straight lines in place. That way you don't have any noodle legs or noodle arms. That just doesn't look quite right. You don't want your fairy to have broken legs. Once I have my proportions all worked out, I move my fairy off to the side so I can continue working on her. I want to flesh her out a little bit more, making some areas thicker and some just thinner, or just changing the proportions slightly. I want to make sure everything is right before I paste this back into the build. Work on smoothing her chest and her arms, and then finishing off those legs. The legs, feet, and hands are such a challenge, but it's so worth the amount of time spent getting them correct. I quite like the way that these legs turned out, as well as the feet, and it really does look like she's just swinging her legs carefree on a summer day. Once I'm happy with her, I put her back onto the swing so that I can figure out where exactly I want her to be sitting. It's important to get this position right because I don't want to have to change it once I have more details on her. Once I'm happy with it, I put one hand around the rope of the swing, give her a head, and then I can begin working on some more details, like getting the ropes to be the correct color, and then of course, working on coloring the pond below her. I wanted it to be sort of muddy and filled in with cyan glass to give that water-like effect. It's very deep. Then I'm going to be changing her out to a birchwood and begin on her clothing. For this fairy, I wanted to do a very summer-like petal skirt. So I went with the color yellow. I think this is very bright and it complements her well. It looks wonderful in the center of this build, and it also goes really well with the purple that is hanging above her. For her top, I went with a nice bright lime green with a yellow strap around the middle. And instead of doing shirt details, I decided to do vines up and down her torso and one of the arms. I love this detail. Now it's time to do our fairy's wings. For our last fairy, we went for rounder, more butterfly-like wings. So for this fairy, I decided to do something different and go for thinner, much more fairy-like wings in my opinion. I love how elegant they look, and I love the curvatures of them from all angles. I went from yellow wings to match her outfit and put some lime green glazed terracotta around the outline. Now that our fairy is in place, it's time to focus back on our tree. I wanted this to look a lot more like a wisteria tree, and the leaves I had in place just weren't doing it. So I used the CraftScript's vine command to add in some vines. I made these out of lilac to give that nice purple color. Now we can focus back on our fairy, where we are going to be adding some hair using red sandstone and orange terracotta. I love the combination of these two blocks in her hair, and I think they go just so wonderfully together. I'm doing her hair by hand, adding strand after strand, giving it sort of a wavy look. Making sure not to get it too tangled around those wings, of course. Once that's done, we're going to be working on just a couple of other details, like some shoes, some pants under her skirt, and I even wanted to give her a hairstyle of some top buns and a little flower in her hair. I love that effect, but now it's time for the finer details of the build so we can finish up. Like for example, adding some details to the wooden swing, and then we're going to add some plants and shrubbery to go around our tree and pond. First up are some cattails. I love putting these around water in build. They just look so wonderful, and to me a build with a pond is not complete without some cattails. Then we're going to be adding some different flowers, such as these beautiful magenta ones, and I just want to get all different plants of different colors. Summer to me is all about the greenery, the flowers, the plants, the shrubs, the gorgeous trees all out in bloom. Oh, just such an amazing season. We're also going to be adding some lily pads with lilies, of course. And then we're going to start pasting this around our terrain. Each one will have its own place, and I make sure it's right before I log off so that I can always undo to remove them. Now we're going to be adding some rocks that are shaded to go around our pond, and even more flowers and different bushes and shrubs to go around it, even a ripple just below her foot. I love this final detail. If I had more time with this build, I definitely would love to add more organics to it, like little creatures and more insects. I think that would be so much fun, but unfortunately I don't have the time, so we're just going to be adding some sunflowers in one area here. Once I'm happy with that, I'm turning my attention back to my fairy, where I'm going to be extending her hand out and placing a butterfly in it. After some more shrubs and rocks are added, this build is finally complete. I hope you guys like it as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching this video. I had an absolute blast creating this build, and I think this might be one of my best trees ever. I'm just so happy with the way that it turned out. If you guys like it, make sure you like the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching once again. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!